you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be out here with all of you today. My name is Crichton, and I want to thank you for all coming down here. I think it's really important, workers' rights. And whether you're in a union or not, unions benefit all working class. So over the last couple of weeks, I've started this campaign called End Double Breasting. And the whole point is to raise awareness of this unfair labor practice. Double breasting happens when a corporation creates a spin-off company and to be able to pay their workers a lower wage. There are many reasons why this unfair labor practice is wrong. The best one that I can think of is it takes the freedom away from a worker to decide whether or not they want to be in a union. That choice should be given back to us, the working class. And I think it's fair to say that the issue of double breasting is not just important to one union or the construction industry, it affects us all. Now, I've had a petition signed by members of the Alberta Federation of Labour, citizens out on the street, and members of the building trade of Alberta. The reason why people are so supportive is because they realize that this is a real problem. And even though it's been devastating to the construction industry, corporations know and that it's a good and effective way for them to be able to de-unionize. Whether it's in a state, somewhere down in the US, or somewhere here in Canada, double breasting is going to be coming, and we need to deal with it, and deal with it soon. So, it was about 33 years ago, outside this legislature assembly, Grant Notley came out and spoke to the crowd. About 5,000 construction workers all gathered out here to protest the passing of Bill 110. Bill 110 would have allowed corporations to create spin-off companies and become double-breasted. And even though this bill passed the third reading, it was never proclaimed because Grant Notley came and stood and fought with the members of the building trades and got it thrown out. This victory, however, was short-lived because the Conservatives were relentless in their pursuit of their dream to bring this unfair labor practice to the province of Alberta. And when they did, everything Grant Notley said in the legislature and outside of it was true. He called it anti-union in nature. And it would take the economic freedom away from the worker and put it into the hands of the owners. And that's exactly what it did. In January of 1984, 70% of the construction work done in our province was done by unionized labor. A couple weeks after that, they started allowing double breasting in our province. 6 months later, that number dropped down to 8%. Along with that, construction workers' wages dropped to 40%. It was devastating, and we've never recovered from it. And we've been fighting an uphill battle ever since. So when we talk about labor reform, and we talk about things like automatic certification, unless we have strong, strict restrictions on double breasting, any organizing drive we do will be fruitless. So it's important to pay attention to this. Now the good news is, like any law that was passed that allows these unfair labor practices to occur, a law can be passed to stop it. Last month, former Saskatchewan Premier Roy Romanow sat in that legislature behind me in the gallery. When the New Democrats took power in Saskatchewan, during that terrible economic recession in the 1990s, Saskatchewan was nearly bankrupted. They had a BBB credit rating. Oil was around $10 to $15 a barrel in oil. But the New Democrats didn't forget that the NDP is a party of labor, and they kept their commitment. They passed something called the Construction Industry Labor Relations Act and stopped the spin-offs from continuing in that province. Their situation was much more serious than ours. However, they proved that you can have real and meaningful labor reform and still have a strong and robust economy. We know that these unfair labor practices are wrong, But Roy Romano dealt with this issue, and he stopped these unfair labor practices, and so should we. The choice to be in a union or not should be made by the Albertan worker. The choice should be made by the many doing the work, not by one person sitting in an office. That's how democracy works, and that's what we're asking for. Give that choice back to us. We're the ones building your schools, your hospitals, your roads, so that when the Premier asks us what we want for real and meaningful labor reform, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that double breasting be put at the top of that list. And we're gathered out here today, just like the 1,000 people were gathered out here yesterday, because we know that after 44 years of brutally oppressive Conservative government, we haven't forgotten about our God-given right to stand our ground and fight for and demand something better when it comes to labor reform. So the NDP's in charge right now. They're the government, and I'm calling on them to fix this broken labor code of ours and end the practice of double breasting. We see what's happening out there every day. Double breasting, it's worker against worker. And it gives corporations the opportunity to pay workers a lower wage when they shouldn't be able to. A collective bargaining agreement was fairly negotiated and voluntarily negotiated between the workers and a corporation to give them the freedom to be able to escape those obligations is wrong. We shouldn't have to wait until the next election for this to be dealt with. After 30 years, we've waited long enough. The time to act is now. Thank you.